Hello, folks. Welcome to Meticulous Talks for October 29th, episode 19. I am, as always, Curse of Chords. Unfortunately, Solving is otherwise occupied this week, so it's going to be just me for now. Solving might be able to make it back to us in time to join us, but if not, I've got plenty to say anyway. It's been a relatively active couple of weeks as far as spoilers are concerned. We had, I believe, two last week, or two in the week of October 16th, and then two in this previous week, and then four just yesterday from the Commentaries Magic stream from Nightmare Nights in Dallas. So we've got a fair amount to talk about, a fair amount of cards in various archetypes, or at least cards which look like they're going to slot into various different archetypes. So we might as well get onto them. As per usual, we're going to be going through these spoilers in chronological order of their release, which means we are starting with Octavia, Harmony and Dissonance from Tuesday, I believe. Tuesday, October 17th, something like that, a couple weeks ago. Purple and white, 3 power, purple and white, 3s across the board, and its cost and its requirements. Meticulous 1, and an opponent, as an opponent plays an event, you get to pay 2 AT and exhaust this card to cancel it. Now, this is something that is relatively, I don't know, it's not new. We saw this with Wake Up Call before, but it's something that only Wake Up Call has done up to now, the ability to cancel events. Something that you see a lot in games like Magic, the ability to counterspell stuff. Relatively uncommon in ponies. And I know this is a card that caused a fair amount of uproar when it first came out. People say, this ability to just repeatedly cancel events is going to be the death of aggro. And I know everyone always says that stuff like this is the death of aggro, but personally, I don't see this as being a particular nail in the coffin for aggro decks. First of all, it is relatively expensive, right? Free cost for Meticulous 1 is not going to be worth it in most decks for sure. And you're paying 2 AT to cancel each of these events. So, as a person, like, I've played purple-white before. And so, if I think of, like, the purple-white decks that I play, and I spent some time doing this when this card first came out, and I'm thinking, like, which events am I scared enough of that I would definitely cancel them, right? So there's removal, obviously, stuff like banishes, cracking the case. I would probably consider important enough. Stuff that's gonna break down my walls, of course. Magical misfire, purple white especially. It's a card that I would cancel every time. Besides that, though, probably less so. And I also spent some time looking at the aggro decks from last set. Hot Wings, for example, a build of Hot Wings that you saw most often in tournaments, only ran not very many events, actually. Only 6. So there was a 3 belly flops always, and then there was occasionally a few changeling changes in there, and something else, I think. Definitely not very many. And so those belly flops I would probably consider canceling. A chance it can change. You're probably using it to challenge a troublemaker. I don't know. Sometimes, sometimes not. It's the thing I'm trying to get to is that aggro decks usually relied on friends. Oh yes, Wonderbolt's Wrap. That's the card, of course. Thank you very much, Bugle. Wonderbolt's Wrap I definitely wouldn't cancel most of the time. Like, you're using it to draw cards or to save 8 or to save on AT, I don't think that's worth the 2 AT to get rid of. But the thing I'm trying to get to is that most of the effects in a deck like Hot Wings are built on friends, right? Your Spitfire Frighten and your sometimes they ran Rutherford as well for the Frighten. Now you can't do anything about that with this card, and those were the effects that oftentimes were really important for how that deck operated. So I certainly don't see this card as ushering in a new era of, oh my god, Purple White's going to be amazing. It is a luxury item. It's something that, it sort of garnishes the cake a little bit, makes it a little bit nicer, but it's not going to be a keystone of your control. If things are going well, I've got some spare AT. I might consider throwing this down. And of course, it's worth noting also that I'm saying that on the assumption that the meta, as it was, is going to continue. If we get a sort of controlled meta where it's dueling counter spells, etc., okay, then Octavia might come into a thing, right? Where everyone's got a whole pile of events in their hand, and that's the game. Sure, then maybe people play Octavia a little bit more frequently. But otherwise, I would see it as, you run a couple of these maybe, just to be that little garnish if you have the deck space for it. But it's definitely not going to be a key card. So, moving on. I believe this was Thursday of last week, maybe Friday. No, I remember it. It was Thursday because it inspired me to build my adventure deck based on it. DJ, Feel the Beat. 3 pink power, 3 cost, 1 pink requirement. When you move a friend, you can pay 1 AT less for your next friend this turn to a minimum of 1 AT. And as has been pointed out, that to a minimum is quite important because when things get free, things get stupid. Watch the commentary's Magic stream when this card was first revealed. I think the most illuminating thing that I learned about was the interaction with Ursa Vanquisher. That actually sounds very exciting. Play that, you move 2 of your opponent's stuff. Notably, it's only when you move friends, so if you move the main, it doesn't actually help that trigger. But anyway, you're going to get a cheap replay on your Ursa, and that's going to be very nice. The other natural synergy is with all of the sort of free movement stuff that you get in blue and in multicolored blue-yellow. The one that leaped to my mind was Winged Wonder, which, play that, move 3 things, play a Thunder Lane for 1. Sounds like a fine idea. And then once you get some action counters, some power counters on Thunder Lane, I might consider just flicking him back and forth to play something else for 2 less. So long as my power was working out. So another card, kind of to summarize everything I've said, another card that it might lead to sort of a resurgence of these movement type effects if you've got enough big cards in the deck that can work with it, but that sort of style sounds strange as I'm talking about it. An aggro deck that's got a bunch of big stuff in it that's relying on cost reductions, maybe it could work. I don't know. I don't see this fitting in. It certainly doesn't fit into the style of aggro decks we've seen so far. Hot Wings, etc., with a bunch of cheap stuff, because clearly you're not going to get any benefits from this card, or small benefits, maybe 1 AT reductions, etc., but that's not going to be worth it. Whether you would see this in a control deck using the Ursa interaction, as we talked about, maybe. Once again, that's kind of a luxury effect. We have decks already that can play Ursa Vanquisher with, in the late game and use it to good effect and make it work. So, I don't know. I see this card as being something that, maybe people experiment with it a little bit, and it might find a few slots for itself. Okay. Let's take a quick look at who all's in the chat. I see you there, Bugle, already, obviously. Just you. Fair enough. Okay, so moving on. Tempest Shadow. Easy as pie. The second card from our review cycle so far that caused something of an uproar when it first came out. Well, yeah, the second card. Third card, which caused another big uproar, is coming just after this one. 6 power Troublemaker with 1 point. So that's the same. That's the same point profile as Changeling Mimics, which was a really good card. Now, notably, Changeling Mimics had a lot of other stuff going for it, making it harder to get rid of. But still, we know that's a strong point profile. It says, when this card is uncovered, you may turn a main character to its start side. And I was actually pretty disappointed when I found out that had a May on it. I thought if it wasn't a May, this card would be actually, in my opinion, very much more interesting, because there would be situations where you really, really wouldn't want to play it, and also some situations where you really, really would, right? And it was kind of, whereas this is, there's almost no downsides, right? Because if you're in a bad situation where your opponent's running Orange Luna or etc., and your main's on their start side, for example, it's like, okay, whatever, I just choose not to do it, and it's still fine. But most people, I think, picked out on the combos here pretty quickly. There was, like, we've already seen Skystar, and that's honestly pretty good. Like, one of my major complaints with Skystar was the fact that you could only do it once per game, and that didn't seem particularly amazing to me. But when you can do it multiple times per game, oh, okay, that starts to get a little bit better. And we already have Orange Luna, of course, the sort of natural choice. That's a very powerful effect if you can use it more than once. Commanding Queen, I believe, is the white main that works only once per game. That's a pretty good idea as well, if you can get that once per game. Lyra, one possibility as well. Putting her back to her start side is less useful, but still, because you do have to discard your hand to flip her back over, but even so, something that's worth considering. So there are applications. Now, as I said, when we started, it's already sitting at a nice, strong point profile for Troublemakers. So it's already in a pretty good spot for just general purpose. I need a relatively strong Troublemaker that's not going to cost me too much in terms of points. Sure, I'll throw one of these in. And occasionally, it's going to make my my opponent pretty sad. Notably, most of the main characters you see in the game today don't really care about getting flipped back to their start side. Blue Luna, they do have to play another card to her problem, but in general, she's going to flip back over right away. Ambassador Twilight, if you've got Meticulous in play, she's going to flip back over right away. DJ, they have to draw 2 more cards. They actually have to pay for it, but she's going to flip back over right away. Let me try to think. Applejack, if it's a farming deck, she's going to be at a problem with a villain. She'll get into a face-off, sure. You don't actually even kill her power counters, so she doesn't care at all. Try to think of another one that sees play from time to time. Obviously, the Defenders of Equestria mains and anything that has to confront problems is going to be pretty sad with this. As well, you've got at least one Troublemaker out, for one thing. So one of their problems can't be confronted. And in this sort of situation, I assume you play Tempest to their problem, which means they're going to have to try to deal with whatever you're running. And since you're a control deck, I assume you've got some pretty hard to confront problem over there. So yes, the notable mains in this category is Scrootaloo, everything from Defenders of Equestria, etc. So to sum that all up, she seems to occupy a pretty moderately strong place. Um, I think it obviously it remains to be seen what other troublemakers we get in the set, but it seems to be in that nice place where oftentimes I know when I'm doing a control deck, you throw in the changeling mimics right away. You throw in some kind of anti-epic thing like a Harmaspi or whatever, and you're left with this third troublemaker slot because you want to run 8 or 9 or 10. And you think, oh, what am I going to put there? Tempest Shadow might be the card that I would pick. So, so yeah, somewhere. Well, if you have if you have enough recursion for yourself, sure, 6 TMs can work. Yeah, and there's always the yellow Parasprite as well. Don't ever forget about that yellow Parasprite. Darn fine troublemaker. Good points. Yeah. When you're able to work, when you're yeah. Anyway, moving on. Let's not allow ourselves to get distracted here. I mentioned a third uproar from just the normal spoilers this week. Our blue main for Seaquestria and beyond, Captain Solano, swashbuckler, usual power numbers, usual home limit numbers, and we have ourselves on the start side. In your main phase, you pay 2 AT, score 2 points, and turn the card over. So this establishes a number of things. First of all, Skystar from a couple of weeks ago also had this pay 2 to do a thing and turn this card over and get nothing on the boosted side, which seems to imply, since we have 2 now, that that's going to be Seaquestria and Beyond's thing for the mains. So I actually haven't seen much speculation, honestly, on what the other colors are going to do, which I'm a little surprised at. To be fair, I'm not entirely certain myself. Maybe orange throws some power around, or yellow gets to throw some stuff out of its hand, or I don't know, white perhaps pay 2 and play a resource for free or something. Yeah, we'll see. But in the case of blue, at least, we're going to be paying 2 and scoring 2 points. Now, the main source of the controversy was the fact that we had the card that we just talked about revealed a couple of days earlier, and most people immediately saw the synergy of scoring my 2 points. Oh, let's play a Tempest Shadow. Let's score another 2 points. Let's, I don't know, use a monstrous manual, flip Tempest Shadow over again, pay another 2, score another 2 points. Splash attack. Perhaps we're gonna do some troublemaker recursion, play another Tempest Shadow, etc., etc. And everyone starts screaming combo, which, to be fair, I think the deck that just tries to flip her over and over again is cool. I think I want to try it. I don't think it's going to be any good, or at least it's not going to be particularly good, but it's going to be cool. I think one of the primary arguments have been made as to why this sort of combo deck isn't going to take the meta by storm. I think one of the reasonable counterpoints that I can provide is to look at Ambassador Rarity from Equestrian Odysseys, another main that scored you 2 points when she flipped over. Granted, not when you're behind, not when you're in front, but a similar sort of idea. And that main, didn't really see any work happening with her. And she actually gave you stuff on her boosted side. And you didn't have to pay to flip her over, and she still scored you those 2 points. So I don't really see this as being something that's going to get focused on primarily. And then from the constructed standpoint, ignoring the idea of a combo deck and just looking at it directly, she has that sort of Skystar potential of always flipping over. So we know, okay, great and limited, actually really great and limited for those 2 points. It's been pointed out before, obviously, that you don't want to do this on turn 1 unless you want your opponent to have 3 AT on turn 1, which you usually don't. Well, okay, if you're going second, then they get 3 AT on their second turn. But either way, it's an interesting situation in the early game to think, okay, am I just going to put my main over and give my opponent the AT advantage right away? And so that creates an interesting dynamic, as opposed to Skystar we had before, where, excuse me, you would have no problem just paying the 2, putting her over, hey, seashell token's great, I confront everything, awesome. Yeah. So it remains to be seen exactly where this is going to fit in. In terms of aggro decks, obviously we have much better range, which give much better value over time in blue. So I don't really see it happening there. Now, as I said before, there's going to be that niche combo deck, which runs 3 Tempests and stuff in a whole pile of colors, either Troublemaker Recursion or stuff to flip her back down, etc., etc. And I'm going to try it, and it's probably going to be fun, but I don't see it being particularly good. Yeah, so I don't see Solano breaking into Constructed anytime soon, but it's going to be great and limited. He's going to have a fun deck built around her, and she's going to be all right. So that takes us to the end of the spoilers that were released sort of through the normal grapevine, as it were. But we had a whole batch of 4 new ones just yesterday coming to us from Nightmare Nights Dallas. Courtesy of Commentary is Magic. Well, courtesy of Interplay via Commentary is Magic, but they were the ones who got to break it. So let's get on into those. I haven't had much of a chance to look at these cards yet. So these are pretty first impressions. But here we go. Gummy in yellow, Lapgator, 1 power, 1 cost, 2 requirement. When you move a character, you put this card from your hand into play. That's an interesting effect. So essentially, if you're paying the 1 cost for this card, you're probably either pretty desperate or in a weird situation. Most of the time, you expect this card to come out of your hand for free because you moved something. The most impactful situation I can imagine for this, or at least that I have imagined for this so far, is in an early game scenario. Like, wouldn't it be great if I was running like Friend to Animals or something, and let's move that up to my problem and get, I don't know, 1 or 2 gummies out of my hand for free. That now allows me to flip Friend to Animals for like 1 and definitely confront my problem. Oh, great! Now that sounds really amazing. There are lots of situations in the early game where you've got this path to flip your main. You think to yourself, well, if I only had 1 more AT, I could totally do it and confront that problem. This card's going to be pretty valuable in situations like that. So if you have it in your hand in the early game, I can imagine it being pretty useful. Now, the problem is, after that, like, it's the sort of value of the card proportional to what's going on in the game drops off a bit towards the end game. Obviously, when you are playing it and actually paying the cost, it's just a vanilla 1-for-1. Like I said, you're very rarely actually going to pay that cost. It's essentially going to be the equivalent of you move a character and that character temporarily gets +1 power. Because, well, okay, no, that's not correct, because it could go into play, add another problem, it could go into play, etc. You move the character and you're getting +1 power somewhere for free. And then for the rest of the game, well, who knows what you're going to do with Gummy. Maybe you retire him into a Sorin or into a Minuet or whatever. There are various ways to make use of him, but even so, it's consequentially less useful later on in the game. You make a very good point, Bugle, of course. When in pink especially, there's lots of value behind having extra, air quotes, useless friends around if you want to throw them at stuff on the opposing side with belly flop, or, as I said, retire it into minuet, etc. So it's true. That kind of thing might come in handy, and especially when it comes out for free, as I said. So there's some value in that. Um, Again, we'll see where it comes out. Like it's true. It's worth noting that it's true. You don't really have to run this in a yellow deck, uh, because, as I say, you're very rarely actually going to play it. You're going to move a thing and put this into play for free. Um, so you can talk about pink decks, and you don't have to say, oh, but it's going to be a pink yellow deck. Well, no, it might just be a pink blue as we've seen, and oh, throw some of these in because I appreciate having that extra +1 power sometimes. Um, it can trigger my Bluna, for example. Wait, no, you have to play stuff from hand to trigger Bluna. Yes. Mm. Actually, you make a very good point there. I assume that's Grand Pause again. Uh, that is actually a really good point. The ability to turn one confront those 1/1s with any domain. Okay, all right, that's a very good point. The extra relevance of those 1/1s. Actually, that's a good point. Like that really might provide a sort of extra step up for the defender's mains, honestly, to say that I can turn one confront with those and flip them over. That might be something. Now you have to run a 1/1/4 problem, which says basically, if I don't confront this on turn one, an aggro opponent's probably going to flip it over again. So extra risk there. But yeah, it's true that that does provide that extra boost. So excuse me. Strangely, that's to think about it more. It's the kind of card that might not even see its primary play in yellow based on that. Maybe it does. Maybe it's just sort of this sort of tech for flipping your main over in certain other cards. We'll see sort of how the meta shakes out and where it ends up seeing most of its play. But either way, to summarize, it seems like Gummy's kind of this almost this sort of sleeper card where you look at him at first and he's like, whatever. But some niche, or not even necessarily niche, some interesting applications out there. Once you start sort of broadening your horizons, thinking, oh yeah, that can go there, or this can go in my purple deck to flip Professor Sparkle over, or whatever. Okay. Rescue Party. This is a card that we probably sort of all knew was coming once we knew Traveler was a thing. 2 blue power, 3 cost, 2 blue requirement, Swift and Traveler. Oh boy, those are 2 keywords that were meant for each other. Match made in heaven for sure. So this is the card that you move this card around and it's, sure, it's a 3 for 2 at first. Okay, fair enough. Blue has lots of ways to make that cheaper, so that's fine. And it very, very rapidly becomes very, very efficient. Swift 3 power is already amazing, and anything after that is just bonuses on top of bonuses. Swift 4, Swift 5, etc., etc. Oh boy, we're off the deep end. So whether this card is going to see its play in sort of aggro decks, yeah, probably. I imagine so. As I say, it doesn't take very long before this card is incredible. And so, yeah, I can imagine this card seeing play in blue pretty excellently. Now, of course, it's a huge target for various removals. It's got that printed power 2, so, oh my goodness. Printed power 2. This thing sticks around with Applejack and Fluttershy. Oh boy. Of course it's Swift, so that doesn't really matter as much. So, yeah, whatever. But yeah, so it's vulnerable to Napcakes only when it first comes out. It's vulnerable to Food Fight immediately afterwards, and it probably will attract that removal relatively straightforward. But, you know, a card being a huge threat, therefore it gets removed, isn't necessarily a weakness. It's just, oh, you know, big threats tend to get removed because that's what removal is for. Um, so yeah, as I say, I think it's a pretty good card. Relatively straightforward. Not much complexity to it. You can just see. It's going to be big. It's going to be moving. It's going to work out well. Okay. The Storm King. Or rather, actually, Storm King. The is missing for some reason. But sure. Conniver. 4 power purple, 4 cost, 4 blue requirement. Seems to be a lot of this same number across the stuff, or at least that's the way it seemed lately. A new trait. We haven't seen the Storm trait before. One wonders how much of that we're going to be getting in this set. I, at the moment, don't expect there to be Storm cards in any future sets, but we'll see. So yeah, we'll see precisely how relevant that trait is going to be. When you move a character, exhaust this card to gain 1. If you moved an opposing character, you get 2 AT instead. So, getting 2 AT back for various situations is pretty good. Pretty good. One thing I was thinking of just this morning, actually, if you know, we already know the Ursa and DJ interaction, so you throw this card into it too. You actually, if your Ursa Vanquisher was on the field before, you actually gain an AT by using her and playing her again. So that's pretty good. The other natural card that I thought of with this was that spike that we saw a little while ago. Not the spike that's coming up next, but the spike we saw a couple weeks ago, where you get, you know, he's got Traveler, so we get to move him for 2 AT, put a +1 power counter on him, move something else, and get our AT back. That seems like a pretty good tempo play. Now, of course, Storm King here, he's a 4 cost. 4 cost, is that going to see play in the sort of aggro-ish tempo purple deck that one expects to see Spike in? I don't know. That's a big ask. I'm not entirely sure what sort of shape that purple aggro deck is going to take in. Maybe it runs Factory Jack. Maybe it runs some kind of AT generation, in which case a 4-cost trend might be able to see play, especially one that pays its way, as it were, quite quickly. Like if we're triggering that 2 AT gain text, then we're getting it back twice over. Well, we have to do it twice in order for this card to have paid for itself. And if we're running Spike with his free move stuff around, sure, that's going to happen a lot. And it'll pay itself back very quickly. Three times? Hold a second. So, paid this card for 4. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, that's a good point. That's a good point. Fair enough. Even so, 3 times, sure. 3 times isn't as easy as twice, but it's still expected to happen. Another possibility, of course, is, well, generally speaking, any card with cost 3 or more, you have to consider the possibility of redeeming it out of your discard pile with redeeming qualities. And that's a possibility as well, or something else that gets stuff up out of your discard pile. And that's fine. In a deck like that, which is running that kind of stuff, if you wanted to focus it around moving your opponent's stuff, you'd be in purple-white, I guess, which maybe that's okay. I don't know. That card, that deck is a little more fuzzy to me. It doesn't crystallize right away, so. Eh. Um, excuse me, taking a drink of water. Anyway, this card, it obviously has applications right away. That 4 cost is its big sort of what you may say is holding it back. Constraint? I think constraint's the word I wanted to say there. And that's what's gonna be. Do you see this 3 of an 8x? I don't know yet. We'll see how the deck space shakes out. But definitely has applications, definitely has the potential to be quite valuable in AT efficiency and that kind of style, whether it is in that control style or in that sort of tempo purple aggro style, which seems to be getting more tools every day that we go through. Right. So our next card is the big sort of showstopper. Our first ultra rare of Seaquestria and Beyond, and another rather impressive spike card, shall we say. Spike, Master of Ceremonies, 4 white, 4 cost, 4 requirement, again, the same number on all of them. If you would choose one effect while playing a song card, you may choose each effect instead. Ooh boy, there's some text. The first kind of text, I think, of the set, really, that kind of hits you like a truck, right? You see that and you think, oof, oh my goodness. The first sort of jaw-dropping card of the set, we're like, wow, that has some applications. It's a big card, of course. 4 cost, same with Storm King as before. It's not going to be in every deck simply by the nature of its cost, and of course the fact that it's white. But that is a big effect. Now, I've got all the songs lined up on subsequent slides. We'll take a look through them, see which ones are sort of really, really good, how that can kind of educate which decks you might want to see Spike going in. Notably, again, since he's in white, you'd expect the white songs to be the ones that get the most benefit. Although, again, Spike is a card that I can see a little bit more value in reanimating out of our discard pile because there is some good value to be found in running songs. And lots of different kinds of decks like to run songs. So getting him out for free, I can see that happening. Yes. So, as I say, in order to properly evaluate Spike, we're going to have to look at our songs. So let's get into those. So these are coming, I believe I have them in alphabetical order, with the Defenders of Equestria ones last. So just cursory look over each of these as we go. Bugle has already been excellent post to the Reddit. Well, it was in a comment, actually, to Spike from before, noting that timing matters when we're doing all the things on a song. You have to do them in order, as printed, although they all resolve before stuff that's triggered by them resolves. So some places it matters, some places it doesn't. Notably, up here with True Friend right here at the start, our first 2 effects resolve into Pony Power, the card we had before, and then that movement will happen before the face-off gets going. The face-off will have started because it necessarily starts due to the text, but we get to move before the face-off gets going, as it were. And of course, yeah. So True Friend, like I say, it basically turns into Pony Power with a little bit extra moves. That costs 1 AT, mind. So, that's pretty good. Apples to the Core. Let me see. These problems confront requirements, exhaust character. Those effects are okay put them together, but the card doesn't become super great, so glass of water. We have ourselves turn face down, uncover. Okay, there's some niche applications for turning something face down and turning it back and turning one of ours up. If you're putting down a villain and throwing up an Aramaspi or something like that, okay, I can see the value in that. And of course, it is a free play as well, which costs the opponent AT. Okay, sure, that's fine. Still not exceptional. Bats over there always has that very great, your opponents can't leave play, and you get 2+1 power counters. Maybe you want to dismiss a resource. It's worth noting, of course, to cycle back to Spike, that his text is a May. It's not you always get all of your song effects. You can choose to get either one or all of them. So in the event that we have a card like Bats, which can sometimes force you to dismiss a resource and you don't want to dismiss one of your own resources, etc., you can choose to, I assume, take the your friends can't leave play this turn effect, because it's... Ah, yes, you're right, Bugle. Good point. The +1 power until the end of the turn. Fair enough. All right. I suppose that does make it into a somewhat better event. Okay, so that one's pretty good. Moving on. Find the music in you. This is the first one that is in white, so has a sort of natural synergy with Spike, so you might expect to see it. Losing to AT, we just confront requirements. So this is one that could be pretty good. I can see all three of these effects being pretty useful. Opponent losing to AT, if they have 2 AT left around, sure. I assume you're in white and yellow, so you could be playing an aggro deck. Opponent's playing a control deck, you want to break up that AT, sure. Reducing the quick confront requirements of a problem, that's good if you're trying to confront, and especially if you have a 1-power friend to get out of your discard pile, sure. So that one seems pretty good to combine off. Heartstrong as Horses is actually one that I see being, you can actually do some cool things with this. Particularly if you have another Heartstrong as Horses in your discard pile already, because then you can get it back with the first effect and just keep on trading those out of your hand. If you play it 4 times, your opponent discards their entire hand, and you've generated 12 power. If you have a Dance Fever on the field, you've generated 20 power. That seems pretty good. Now, that's assuming that it misfire you somewhere in between there or do some such. But this is the first one that I think has some real potential to show up, white, orange. I guess this would probably be a mill deck of some sort, which already exists. I know that's the way Classic Rock was played at BronyCon. With Reanimation, with Sweetie Belle, and I think I think that potential could actually work. So that's, and of course it is already in white, and already in a color that that has the potential to maybe reanimate Spike. So some possibilities there. I'll fly. Let's see. Character gets +2. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Move a friend. Okay, sure, that's all right. Those are all effects that you're going to want to do, so sure, that's all right. Party Planner, we've got Dismiss, Troublemaker +3. All right, yeah. In pink and purple, you're probably going to be able to use all 3 of those from time to time, so fair enough. Just Castle Home, you draw 2, you banish a friend, printed power 2, and do some resource recursion. That one's less outstanding. Yeah. Music in the Treetops, we've got Problem Deck Reorganization. Now this one's actually, Problem Deck, whatever, no one ever does that. 2 critter friends in play, sure. That turns it into sort of a main phase Rise and Shine, and each player retires a friend. It's notable that when you get to do all 3 of those, you can retire one of your critter friends, but it suffers from the same usual problem that these sort of symmetric retirement things have, which your opponent's not going to retire something important anyway. So, right. Let's see. Continuing on. Sisterhood, flip additional card, character. So you get the move, you get the flip. Once again. Okay, fair enough, Hugo. Right. Well, once again, you make a good point with that. That card was in pink, right? Pink, yellow, right. All right. Point well made there. Actually, that point about Appaloosa is actually quite even better. The decks with Appaloosa in them tend to run relatively low friend counts, and those friends tend to be pretty good. And forcing them to retire, all right, fair enough. Things have changed a little bit. Well, Appaloosa is an old card. Things have changed, I guess, just in terms of people realizing that it's good. So, okay, fair enough. I can understand that. Even so, though, is using all three of them better than using one of them? In that case, you get 2 critter friend tokens, basically. So, I mean, it's nice. I don't know if it's, yeah, it's definitely not worth going into Spike for, though, I don't think. Sisterhood, again, it's all right. Not ridiculous, though. The Spectacle was another card that, like Heart's Strongest Horses, can loop itself if you have one of them in discard pile already. In this case, you're not getting as much benefit. You can make a ridiculously powerful troublemaker if you want. Sure. I wouldn't even be particularly hard. Actually, let me stop and think for a second. 7, 28. Yeah, play it 5 times so you can get a troublemaker over 100 power if you wanted to, for laughs. And, you know, of course, at the time, yeah, you're removing stuff with 2 or less power onto its owner's deck. There's some value in that, I suppose. But even so, not as impressive. Make our mark. You've got. It's fair. Yeah, it's a good point. It's not napcakes because it's not immediate main phase. I think that's kind of the most important distinction. But it's true. Using that sort of repeatedly to clear off a bunch of stuff. Sure, there's value in that, and it is in white. Worth noting, it is in white. Got that natural synergy with Spike, so maybe. Make our mark. We've got draw 3, discard 3, challenge. So this is one of those cards where the sequencing kind of, I believe Bugle noted this as a card where the sequencing seems to matter, but it doesn't, because we get to challenge one with. Yes, we challenge the opposing. So this is actually a fair point to ask. I know I've got some rules people in my chat right now. I assume that we can choose to challenge this troublemaker with it's not location based. So if our main character is somewhere else, we challenge over there, and then we move the main character, and it gets +2 power, and it's still the character that is challenging the troublemaker, right? Well, of course, yes. We draw 3, discard 3 before everything else. That's fine, but it's totally fine to have our main character be at home. We challenge it with our main character, even though it's not the problem, and then give it the +2 and move, and then resolve our face-off, right? I assume that's still fine. Anyway. So you're getting +2 power. It's going to be less useful than True Friend, obviously, for you the same effect, except for the draw 3, discard 3, which is probably going to be pretty useful for you. So, it's a fine card. The vote is already an incredibly strong song. When you get the Frighten and the Event Blocker, that's really good already, because this is the card's usually used for the event blocking when you're playing an aggro deck and you want to have a breakout turn. Having that Frighten as well, it gets really good because you're probably going to use it to remove some important friend, which is in the way. Some big eccentric, some friend with some effect that's going to replace a troublemaker or whatever, etc., etc. Yeah, and then sometimes you score a point. That's great. 1 Volt Trap is another card that, in the decks that use it, almost all of those effects are used sometimes. And so the ability to use all 3 of them, oh, great, yeah. That card gets very good. it's in sort of two of the wrong colors, as it were, but worth noting that the card gets quite nice when you are able to use all three of them. And then finishing off with our 6 Defenders of Equestria songs, we have Change, to move, challenge the troublemaker. Yep, those those effects are all very nice, and the card gets quite nice when you can use them all. They're pretty much all useful, especially when there's opposing troublemaker out. So, yep, that one's quite nice. Pinky's present. Drawing 4 cards, eccentric 2 on all the problems, and taking everyone's friend to end a square face. All right, sure, that's fair. Pink, as we know, there's lots of ways to take advantage of that. Gain control of an opposing friend. Drawing 4 cards, you're usually not going to be too sad about that. And the eccentric 2 on all problems. You wouldn't complain about getting that in addition to the others. So that card's pretty nice. The Miss Future, a little bit more niche, but again, the decks that usually run this will run it with troublemakers for sure. So banishing a resource and throwing the power counters, of course, same as we were talking about with like this Castle Home, I think, or one of the ones that dismissed a resource before. Occasionally less useful, but still something to have. This one was a little bit less impressive than those first 2, but still fine. Find the purpose in your life. We get the Unfrightened. Cost an opposing character doesn't ready to. Okay, that's all right. Additional card during face-offs until the end of the turn. Less impressive there as well. And it's going to work. We have the Banish. -2 to confront all problems. This is one where the effects are really, really disparate. And so it's less likely that they're all going to be particularly useful to you. But even so, just getting those 2, just getting the Banish and the -2 to confront problems together, that's pretty good on its own already. So maybe that's worth it. And finally, friends are always there. We have dismiss a resource, gain control of an opposing troublemaker, put 3 critter tokens into play. All right, that's not bad too. Gaining control of an opposing troublemaker and getting 3 critter friend tokens, I can see that being useful. I can certainly see that being useful. So that was kind of a whirlwind tour of songs. I know I didn't delve too deeply into all of them, but I just kind of wanted to get a general survey of where this card lies in terms of the amount of value that it's going to deliver. And, it's certainly without question that all the songs get better when you can do all of their stuff. It's just a matter of sort of which ones are going to slot into a deck that can run Spike, first of all. It's the white ones and the Defenders of Equestria ones to a lesser extent. And which ones sort of really, really become a lot more powerful. So I think sort of the conclusion that I reached after that survey was that, and after looking through them on my own time, of course, was that, yeah, there are relatively few that really change the game when you can do all the effects of the song instead of just one of them. I say they all get better, but nothing really moves up to a whole new level, which seems to imply that Spike's not going to be a key, right? He's not going to be the centerpiece of a deck that appreciates, oh my goodness, my songs are all incredible now. But there may be decks out there that would appreciate having him around for that extra value. Decks that were already really liking their songs and want to really extend the value. So we're not in the business of handing out ratings before our full review here on Meticulous Talks, but another card that I see potentially is warranting of a little bit of experimentation might see his way into the meta a little bit. And in any event, as a few people have pointed out, it's a very flashy card, right? It's a big effect, quite cool. The kind of thing that you would kind of like with an ultra rare, something that really makes you think and think, oh man, there are some possibilities of places that I could make use of this card. Anyway, yeah, that does bring to an end our spoiler discussion. Um, our next stream is going to be, of course, in 2 weeks, November 12th, which is going to be the weekend before pre-release, I believe. So one, or at least according to the current schedule, pre-release is sitting on the weekend of the 17th, I believe. 17th, 18th, and 19th. So I expect spoilers, well, over 2 weeks. Spoiler pace might have picked up a little bit by then. Obviously, after pre-release, we know everything, generally. So after that, we'll get to it. And then, let's see. Solving and I will have to talk in the future about where exactly our review stream is going to go. Our stream after that, of course, is going to be November 26th, which will be 1 week after Street release. Or wait, no. That'll be week of Street release. So probably not then. We'll probably save our review till 2 weeks after that to give us some time to look over the set and see what we think of it. But even so, we'll definitely see you all in 2 weeks' time. We'll have a bunch more spoilers to talk about. So unfortunately, it seems like Solving couldn't find the time to join me today. It's all right. Hope you all enjoyed just me talking, and next time he's on stream, we'll give him a chance to quickly run down each of these cards. But in any event, thank you very much for sharing your morning with me. I have, of course, been Curse of Chords, and I'll see you around.